Conscience Guide Team by Sheepdog and Shepherd.
Conscience Guide Team 7.8 Conscience and Afghanistan Withdrawal.
I love it when nations engage in internal conflict because it's so easy for me to slither in unnoticed. I have them right where I want them, and I will be able to control them body and soul.
Shepherd, wake up. There's a long, ugly, slimy thing out there ready to come in. Come on, Shepherd, wake up.
In his article, Trust in the Military is Dropping Significantly, Leo Shane III cited a public opinion poll released by the Ronald Reagan Institute. The poll, administered in February 2021, just a short time after the presidential election, compels us to consider the proverbial elephant in the room. That is, while the poll emphasized the debate over the role of the military in civil disturbance, it omitted the unprecedented number of retired generals and admirals publicly condemning the decisions of the former Commander in Chief. Therefore, is the public's loss of trust in the military, or is it loss of trust and confidence in senior military leaders? It was crooner Bing Crosby who, in the 1954 movie White Christmas, immortalized the Irving Berlin song, "What Can You Do with a General?" The movie and song highlighted the plight of retired generals. What can you do with a general? When the war was over, why, there were jobs galore for the G.I. Josephs who were in the war, but for generals things were not so grand, and it's not so hard to understand. What can you do with a general when he stops being a general? Oh, what can you do with a general who retires? Who's got a job for a general when he stops being a general? They all get a job, but a general no one hires. They fill his chest with medals while he's across the foam, and they spread the crimson carpet when he comes marching home. The next day someone hollers when he comes into view, "Here comes the general," and they all say, "General who?" They're delighted that he came, but they can't recall his name. Nobody thinks of assigning him when they stop whining and dining him. It seems this country never has enjoyed so many 1 and 2 and 3 and 4-star generals unemployed. The plight of unemployed generals has clearly been eradicated. Many retired generals and admirals have accumulated tremendous wealth employed by what President Eisenhower described in his farewell address as the military-industrial complex, and is now described as the defense industry. President Eisenhower stated, "In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist." The U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan affords us the opportunity to test President Eisenhower's assertion. The current President of the United States directed the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan, thus allowing the Taliban to control the country. Predictably, the news media focuses attention on the political parties exchanging recriminations as the Taliban assumes control of the country. Of particular note, the news media also serves as a platform for retired generals and admirals to express their opinions. What interests do the retired generals and admirals represent now? Do they represent our national interests, or do they represent the interests of the defense industry? Recalling President Eisenhower's counsel, does the legion of retired generals and admirals involved in the political arena suggests the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The current Secretary of Defense, SecDef, served as the commander of U.S. Central Command. Prior to accepting the position of SecDef, he served on the board of directors for Raytheon Technologies, a major defense contractor. Article 2, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution states, "The President shall be the Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into the actual service of the United States. He may require the opinion in writing of the principal officer in each of the executive departments upon any subject relating to the duties of their respective offices." In view of the current SecDef's background as both combatant commander and board director for a major defense contractor, what interests will he represent in advising the current Commander-in-Chief? The former Commander-in-Chief made a commitment to end forever wars. Clearly, he sought the cost of forever wars not only in monetary terms but also in human life, both of our nation's sons and daughters, and lives lost in Iraq and Afghanistan. The news media highlighted the tension between him and the senior military leadership. What was the real source of the animosity between the former Commander-in-Chief and the retired General Officer, Flag Officer, GOFO community? One retired admiral stated, "The President famously does not actually read the voluminous policy papers with which he is presented. From the perspective of the senior military mind, this would be akin to a car refusing to be gassed up." Was the GOFO community insulted by the former Commander-in-Chief's characterization of them as weak? The tension between Commander-in-Chief and GOFOs is nothing new. President Lincoln and General McClellan, President Truman and General MacArthur, President Bush and Admiral Fallon, President Obama and General Mattis. However, retired General Colin Powell's quadrennial denunciations of the Republican Party signaled a new era in the GOFO community's foray into partisan politics. The news media regularly reports on the number of generals and admirals aligning themselves with one president and opposing another president. In the process, the U.S. Constitution, to which U.S. presidents and GOFOs make an oath to support and defend, suffers collateral damage. While this generation of GOFOs speaks their views with courage and conviction on camera, adversaries position themselves at our nation's gates ready to invade. Have the GOFOs forgotten their oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic? At one time, our nation committed to employ military force only if it committed to victory. Recognizing that people have a tendency to adapt to that which is unacceptable, is it possible that the former Commander-in-Chief's criticism of senior military leaders hit a raw nerve? That is, have senior military leaders adapted to forever war and lost what Karl von Clausewitz referred to as coup d'oeil, the inward eye, and its commitment to victory? Is it possible that senior military leaders have ignored the wisdom of Sun Tzu? For there has never been a protracted war from which a country has benefited. Undoubtedly, the generals and admirals of the United States of America represent the best trained and educated military leaders on the globe. Yet, Sun Tzu said, "Therefore it is said that one may know how to win, but cannot necessarily do so." Have our nation's generals and admirals adapted to an incessant baton transfer from one commander to another with no expectation of victory? Adapting to forever war is synonymous with engaging in the rigorous pursuit of failure and mediocrity. That, I believe, is the source of America's loss of confidence in the U.S. Armed Forces. It seems that there are more retired generals and admirals featured in the news media than there are privates in the Army. But I digress. Speaking on behalf of military personnel laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery or any of the cemeteries in our nation, permit me to challenge our senior military leaders to expend more energy in fighting our nation's adversaries and less energy engaging in partisan politics. Speaking on behalf of those who had an intermediate stop at the Air Force Mortuary Affairs operations on their way to a final resting place, permit me to challenge our senior military leaders to commit themselves to victory at every level of war, tactical, operational, and strategic. Speaking on behalf of those lost, injured in body, soul, or both in the line of duty, permit me to challenge our senior military leaders to focus on operational competence, not political expedience. In doing so, they will regain the trust and confidence of our nation. In doing so, our nation may once again embrace a commitment to victory so that our nation's sons and daughters shall not have died in vain.
Special acknowledgement to our references.
Special thanks to voiceover artists Cynthia and Todd and content consultant Ed.
Thank you for watching our presentation on matters pertaining to conscience. Please subscribe and offer your comments. Produced by Sheepdog and Shepherd, aka M. Gilbert Steiner, author of Short Man of Nuremberg.